So I appear to have this thing when it comes to Williams Formula 1 drivers, where no matter what I appear to say about them, almost instantly said comments age like anything put into Bonnie Blue's clam. Colapinto will be shit, proceeds not to be shit. I was wrong about Colapinto, proceeds to make me wrong about Colapinto again. Colapinto is done for, signs with Alpine. Alex Albon is finished. We should have known where this was going by this stage. In my defense, I still stand by the fact that said aforementioned video was justified. We've been praising this kid for revitalising his career following a chokeslam by Red Bull, all while his stats were being padded by Go Tiffy and the American Dream. When Sargent committed one too many an international incident for James Vowles, in comes Franco Colapinto, a nobody at the time with only half a year's experience in F2, and within just a handful of races, the Argentinian is already on par with Albon, and even ahead if you're an Argentinian, or get your analyses from someone's Wikipedia page. Granted though, when Albon was put under pressure in the latter half of 2024, the tyre driver began to crack like an egg. In fact, that's too kind. It was like smashing the egg with an AK-47. And yes, of course someone's done that on this platform already. The problem was, because of the GOAT and the American terrorist, we had no proper benchmark for either of these guys. All we knew was that they weren't as good as Max Verstappen. Obviously. That would all change come 2025 though, as coming into the team was the Spanish casualty of Ferrari's new diversity policy, Carlos Sainz, the 30-year-old in peak form and coming off one of his best seasons to date in Formula 1. Carlos was highly rated and would finally get a chance to see how Albon stacked up against a real teammate, and we, as the Formula 1 community, thought we all knew the answer to this one already. I wasn't the only one out there to predict Albon to be utterly flattened by the might that is Carlos Sainz in 2025. Arguably, it was seen as the low-hanging fruit of the pre-season predictions, a bit like Ricciardo to Red Bull was the year prior. Anyway, before I go and replace that egg with my frontal cortex, let's return to the matter at hand. And now, just a quarter of the way into the season, it was about time we come to a conclusion and apologise to Alexander Albon. Before we get into that though, I'm willing to bet some of you are watching this at work. Perhaps you're on one of those suspiciously long toilet breaks. Maybe don't take too long though, people might just start to wonder what you're doing in there. Not that I blame you, work sucks, particularly when your boss decides that you need 500 different apps to learn, only to switch to a new one as soon as you think you've found your feet. Now just imagine if you could have all those apps in one place, all of your accounting, timesheets, sales, all under one umbrella, in one fully integrated ecosystem. Well, that's where today's sponsor Odoo comes in. Odoo provides a centralized and intuitive platform for all of your business needs, streamlining your business management and making yourself far less likely to turn your computer monitor into a glorified donut. The software also lets you streamline your workflow and optimize your time, removing a lot of those repetitive tasks, allowing you to focus on what really matters, watching more FP1 videos on the toilet. No, probably something more interesting than that. Starting your own F1 merch e-commerce, where you could sell t-shirts, for which invoices would automatically be created and the stock updated. Website creation, invoicing, manufacturing, and more, all in one place, and all for the affordable price of €19.90 per month, making this an affordable option too, and one that removes the need to juggle a million different subscriptions from other companies. And if you'd rather just try Odoo first, you can get any one of these apps completely for free, no strings attached, and a company with unlimited lifetime hosting and support. Interested? Check out Odoo by heading down to the description below, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Now, back to Alex Albon. Williams were one of the biggest surprises of 2025 testing, looking to have made a big step up over the winter despite all the focus supposedly being on the new regulations in 2026. The Grove outfit would set the fastest time of the three-day event, and said fastest time would go to Sainz, who appeared to have bedded himself quickly into his new team, benefiting from extensive running at the end of the previous season, Ferrari effectively releasing him early to carry out the post-season test with Williams in Abu Dhabi at the end of 2024. A nice gesture from the Italian team on that one. Alpine, time to take some notes. Albon's best effort on day 3 was just shy of breaking into the top 5, 3/10 of his teammates, though we had the usual caveats of this just being testing and the drivers being out in different conditions. Just to prove all that, Lance Stroll was in the top 10. Melbourne then would be the first proper test as the Williams pair headed out together, and while we all maybe expected a big difference on the timing boards, I'm not quite sure we expected the order it would come in. Albon lining up 6th, while Sainz could only muster 10th, 3/10 down, having made a mistake on his banker lap in Q3. Rain would equalise the field for Sunday, giving Williams an excellent chance to score big points off the bat. Unfortunately, their big money signing over the off-season was more interested in touching up the concrete walls out of the final corner. What did he call this again? A torque surge? That's an interesting way of spelling bollocks. Carlos would at least get to spend the rest of his afternoon playing real-life F1 manager, making the call that would score Albon big points in the Grand Prix. But that's just further proof of what was on the table for the Spaniard that weekend. You see, Williams may have started the season strong, but there was no guarantee that would last over the course of the entire championship. 2023 Aston Martin the best example of this, and their inability to maximise their chances at the start of the season led to them slipping back to 5th overall, despite having the second fastest car for the first quarter of the year. China would be a good place for Carlos to regroup then, but sprint quali saw the margins only increase over Albon. Now 8/10 the difference as the Spaniard failed to make it out of SQ2, and it was a similar story in Grand Prix qualifying the following day. As far as the races were concerned, Sainz fell back to 17th in the sprint and only made little progress in Sunday's Grand Prix, only scoring points thanks to the stewards having a fetish for black flags that weekend. Maybe Japan would be better, and technically it would, the gap closing to just 1/10 of a second in qualifying, the smallest margin all year, but that was still the difference in Albon progressing into Q3 and Sainz getting to spend it playing F1 manager again. It also meant sayonara 20 hopes of points in the Grand Prix, because Suzuka is just, that's a nice cherry blossom tree. Far more interesting than what's actually happening out on track at the moment. We were 3 rounds in now, and already an alarming pattern was beginning to form for Sainz, who's kind of stole the limelight of this Alex Albon video so far, but that's also kind of how it felt in the paddock as well. With everyone focusing on the struggling Spaniard, a lot of Albon's performances were slipping under the radar. He had 18 points to Carlos's 1, and was the big reason why Williams was still in the fight for 5th in the Constructors, a huge payday if it can be secured by season's end, and a chance for the team to finally stop designing their cars out of the same shack that Frank started in. Bahrain, though, would turn into an off weekend for the time, as Sainz finally appeared to discover the form he apparently left at F1 testing, and got back into Q3, while Albon was knocked out of Q1 by a cheating Hulkenberg. Big up to the F1 stewards for being f***ing shit on that one. That very much stunted his progress in the race, while Sainz still retired thanks to a kamikaze Red Bull. Albon was behind again in Saudi qualifying, narrowly missing out on the top 10, while Sainz went on to secure a season's best 6th for Sunday's race. Fortunes would flip 24 hours later, however, as Carlos gradually dropped through the field, and Alex was able to catch up, the pair eventually working together to take home a double points finish for the outfit, and regardless which Williams driver this video is about, that result was so important at the end of the day. For years, this team had never had 2 drivers competing on equal form, be that for money reasons, be that for volatility, be that for, I don't know why Sargent was kept on for so long, but this team now had 2 top-class drivers under the visor, and 2 who could now regularly compete for points finishes. But remember what I said at the start of this video, whatever I say about Williams, it never ages well, and I'll be honest, I've been working on this script for a few weeks now, and decided just to let the Miami sprint play out, so need to watch Sainz return to being shit, and Albon to lose his P5 finish for driving too slowly under the safety car. Thankfully, when things had dried up for the actual Grand Prix qualifying, both cars were back on similar form, Sainz and Albon 6th and 7th respectively, and while Carlos was able to enjoy watching his old team spontaneously combust, the real props go to Albon, who showed significantly more pace over the race stint, ending it in P6 ahead of Antonelli and both Ferraris. Now I have a bet with my TalkShift co-host on this one. His cock is rammed so far down Albon's throat he thinks he'll end the year higher than Lewis Hamilton in the championship standings. I think that's senile, but it doesn't take away from the tie's mega performances so far in 2025. Go and check out TalkShift by the way, it's really good. In a year where we expected this guy to be destroyed by his teammates, Albon's delivered, and in doing so appears to have finally overcome the burden that has held him back all these years. Exterior pressure. At Red Bull, it was being Max Verstappen's teammate that led to a string of costly mistakes and eventually being stuck on the sidelines for a year. Then, as soon as the going got tough in 2024, we began to see those similar errors all over again. Usually this just ramps up said pressure even more until the subject spirals into a death loop that eventually sees them sign a contract to race in Formula E. With Carlos entering the fray, this, plus the end of the 2024 campaign, could have weighed down on Alex Albon, but he didn't let it beat him, and now, just 6 races after we were calling him a fraud, he's back as one of the cornerstones of a rapidly improving Formula 1 team, with a real chance for success in 2026. So, Alex Albon, I'm sorry. Because you know my history, and no doubt from Imola, you'll be back in the wall again. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content throughout the entire 2025 season. Big thank you to Odoo once again for sponsoring this video, and shout out to all my members and patrons as well, who get this one in early access and will be getting a new exclusive video this week on top of that. If you want to hear even more from me, or just want to support the channel, head down to the link in the description below. I'll be back on the weekend with the Imola comedy review. Until then, have a good one.